Okay, thank you. Is that you're okay now? Go ahead. Good afternoon. Today is Monday, March 21st, 2022. Time is 2:33. We're starting our meeting. I can see everybody, so we have quorum today. And our link and calling number is in our site. And also all the conversation today is recorded. So a president remark, I don't have to say anything, just thanks the staff for their tireless work for this redistricting and all of that. Changes to agenda.
Madam President,
Yes, sir.
if we could have a conversation, it could be at the end of the meeting about the schedule for future meetings. I think that would be helpful. The combination of, I don't think we want to meet on the Juneteenth holiday. And we also may want to change our meetings as a result of the election having moved. We probably don't want to meet on the day before the election. Anyway, there's a bunch of questions about that.
All right then. Yes, sure. We can have it toward the end of our meeting and there'll be new business, old business, whatever you name it. Okay, that's good.
Thank you.
All right then. We will have to remind me, okay, in case.
Sure.
So thank you. All right. Campaign contribution. Anybody gave money or? Yes, Diane.
$45
For-
to White Hotel.
$45. Okay. Anybody else?
I didn't hear $45.
45.
$45.
45.
To
Dwight Patel, he's running for county council at large.
Yes. Thank you. I haven't done anything. So nobody have done that. Thank you. Lisa, public comment.
I have no one who asked to address the board in advance. There was an inquiry by Mr. Keita Battle, who I see is on the call now. Mr. Keita Battle, if you'd like to address the board at this time. Jerry, if you can unmute her. Ms. Battle, if you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, this is just Takeda Battle. I was interested in starting to get more involved in the elections process and Board of Elections here in Montgomery County. And I just wanted to attend a first meeting and interest in future poll watching and potentially becoming an election judge one day. So I just wanted to get more involved and hear what's going on. So thank you for allowing me to participate.
Thank you very much. Hopefully you will be our election judge.
We need election judges, so that's
Yeah,
good.
we need
That's,
election judge.
Thank you for your interest.
Thank you. Election director status report.
Sure. The status report was distributed to the board members over the weekend. Notice of this meeting was provided to the board members and placed on our front door on March 18th. And maps of the staff recommended areas that we are going to continue reviewing today were updated on March 14th, which was a supplement to the maps that have been there previously. I will not go through and read everything in the written director's report, although we can certainly cover anything that you wish. I do want to, there was some follow-up conversation after I sent out a report. Actually, Board Secretary David Naiman had pointed out that there are multiple maps out there providing council district, council hookup. And Janet and I went through the talk this morning about what else is out there. And so we are going to head and link to another map that is out there right now, which David had pointed out to me. And while we're at it, though, we're also working through some sort of usability questions. We can make the map that works. There's multiple things. We want to make sure ultimately the short term and the long term that we build towards having maps that are as usable as possible for voters, for those who observe our processes, and the political geography to be able to use, also in the short term to be able to get a link up there that does go to a map that has where the new council district boundaries will be. And so we are going to make that change after this board meeting today. So there will be another map available there for folks to click on. The date of the election being shifted from June 28th to June 19th has a cascading series of effects on other dates in our election calendar. And at the State Board of Elections website at elections.maryland.gov, there is now an updated calendar, some of which I had highlighted for board members. What I will point out to you primarily is that the deadline to create or change a precinct boundary or polling place is now shifted to April 19th. And so that does give the board a little bit more time for this process to play. And then the deadline for the state board to certify the content and arrangement of the ballot shifts to May 16th with a legal authorization for the ballot on May 9th.
And Allison, you meant to say the election, July 19th.
I did,
Yeah.
July 19th. If I said a different date, I said,
Excuse me, Allison, it's really hard to hear you. I don't know if the microphone perhaps is coming from somewhere other than your computer, but when you and Alex were talking to each other, it was very hard. I could kind of hear tones, but not words.
I will speak up. Does this work?
Is that good?
It's better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Speak up, yeah, thank you.
The close of registration and the party change deadline, of course, being very important for people as we're getting into a gubernatorial primary election, is postponed by this court action to June 28th, 2022. The early voting period will be from July 7th to July 14th. And then, of course, the deadlines to request a ballot by mail shift to July 12th or July 15th, depending on whether you want it sent to you by mail or whether you want it sent to you electronically. Election day is June 19th, and then the dates of the canvass shift such that we are required to begin the absentee canvass on July 21st, to begin the provisional ballot canvass on July 27th. The last day for a timely postmarked ballot to be received by our office, and when what we call the second absentee canvass is scheduled to begin, shifts to July 29th. And then I advise the board members that you should probably prepare for the date of certification of the election to be around August 12th or so. Of course, that is very preliminary and we do not have all of the information we will need. The volume of the by mail ballots that we have, that will be a shifting date. And being flagged, I have staff waving at me that I need to move closer to the microphone so that you all can hear me. So give me just a second. Cover again any information that anybody missed about the dates, but that information is also on our website and on the State Board of Elections website. You can see a full calendar of the election. And I guess people want to see me on camera too, so we'll move that as well. All right, thank you all.
Yes.
Can I ask a question of Allison about those dates?
Yes, go ahead, David. Your hand should be up that we can see you. You have a
Okay, I apologize for, I can remedy that. So, okay, so my hand should now be up, although I can't see my hand. So, I just want to underscore something for those who are listening. Under Maryland law, we cannot count, unless there's a change in the law between now and then, we cannot count the vote by mail ballots. We cannot start counting the vote by mail ballots until after the election, either the Wednesday or Thursday, depending on whether you're looking at the statute or the regulation. So the dates that you said that were in July, I believe starting on the 21st of July, that is based on the law that says that we can't count votes before that. It is not, in other words, for those who may be concerned as to why is it that the election is not over on election night. We know from experience on the board, the election is never over on election night, but I just wanted to kind of underscore that. If I understand correctly, I mean, the election counting goes on for at least, 2 weeks after election day.
Yes, good point,
Yes.
David, yes.
Yes, I will just add to that for anyone who's listening that in 2020, the reason that we were able to count absentee ballots prior to election day was because of the emergency authority of the governor. And the law has not been changed on that permanently. So prior to 2020, we did not open any envelopes of any absentee ballots until 2 days after election day. And that is still law. So that is something that the legislature is going to have to change if they want any results for vote by mail prior to 2 days after election day.
And there is legislation pending that has passed the state Senate that would do that, but at the moment, that's not the law.
Right.
Thank you.
So with the changes in these dates, the staff is currently working to shift our staffing and our transportation plans and to secure our plans for early voting sites and polling places for the rescheduled election date. At this point, what we are planning to do is to bring the voting location changes, those recommendations to the board for a vote at the April meeting. We want to have those votes all occur at once because after the board votes to change precinct boundaries or polling places, then there's a clock that starts for the Board of Elections staff to send out new voter notification cards to all of the affected voters. And what we want to do is that we want to send those in a single mailing to all voters throughout the county. And so we would like that vote to occur at the board's April meeting. I do note in our report that we may recommend switching to different rooms to coexist with previously scheduled summer programs at some locations. And so of course we will we'll have that discussion. We can have that discussion to an extent at this meeting today, but those decisions will not be something we will be asking the board to make until its April meeting. We also want the board to be prepared for the possibility that the election date may change again, depending on the continued litigation over the redistricting plan. Just be ready for that possibility should it occur. We did also flag in the director's report that we had a concern about the location of the ballot drop box at the Bethesda North Marriott Hotel and Conference Center. I want you to know that we've had some further conversations, and in fact, this morning I did learn from the security personnel at the Montgomery County Conference Center that it will be possible for them to go ahead and secure the video footage for us, to download it for us. We'll just simply need to work, their attorney and our attorney will have to work together in the event that we need to actually obtain that footage, but we do not have the, we do now have the ability, Marriott has agreed to retain that footage for us, so that concern has been averted. At the state board's meeting on March 10th, there were regulations that were approved that were really just complying with the changes in law that we've seen, recognizing that there were emergency regulations that were governed under for the 2020 election. And now there are permanent changes that need to be made to those regulations moving forward, since we will not be running this election quite like the one either in 2018 or like the elections that we had in 2020. But the other thing that occurred at the state board meeting that I want to draw all of your attention to is that there is a copy of the usability report that the University of Baltimore did on the materials and the forms related to mail-in voting. Our board has had interest over time in the usability of those forms as well. And so I want you all to know that accompanying the materials for the state election administrators report from that March meeting is a copy of that usability report that was submitted to the General Assembly. And so I encourage board members to take a look at that and let us know of any questions or interest that you have on what those forms are going to look like as voters begin to use them for this election. The budget is going to look a little different now that we have a postponed election. Of course, the date change for the election means the election itself will be in fiscal year 23, not in fiscal year 22. And so that is going to take a little bit of the pressure off of the board's budget for fiscal year 22. We still are bringing forward a supplemental budget request for fiscal year 22. Of course, a lot of that is prompted by the significant increase in the size of the state board's invoice from what we had budgeted. But we're going to need less to make it through fiscal year 22 than we originally had planned, and we will need more in fiscal 23. So that process will continue on. Of course, the county executive has unveiled his budget recommendations, which will go to the council for consideration. I noted in the director's report and want to flag for all of you that there is a $2.3 million increase to the board's budget in the county executive's recommended operating budget. And that does include additional funds, both for the state board invoice and for an increase in election judge stipends. That recommendation will increase the minimum that election judges make, or the amount of the county executive's recommendation, I should say, both encompasses the additional dates and hours that we will need election judges, but then it also would fund an increase in the minimum for election judges, for the voting operations judges that we have out of the polls, from 100 a day to 200 a day. And so while it is the board's action that would need to be taken in order to raise that stipend, that is the county executive's position, and that is what is included in the budget, which is consistent with some legislation that is also being considered in the General Assembly that would potentially set a minimum for election judges. The written report covers the monthly statistics, some information on the municipal elections that we are expecting in calendar 22, our activities to date on the nursing home program. Are questions waiting until the end of the director's report, or do you want to take them now?
David wanted to ask a question.
Okay, great.
Yes, a couple of questions, actually. Question one, can we get a list of the dates of those municipal elections?
Yes.
Question two, can we get a list of the senior housing that are participating in the what we call the nursing home program?
Yes.
I think that's it. Thank you.
She will cover it.
I had just glossed over the nursing home program, but what the written report does say is that we have at this time 55 large facilities that have opted to participate in the program, and the program is where we send bipartisan election judges out to assist with voter registration and voting at those locations. So David had asked us to provide you all with that list of facilities, and we can do that.
Question, I'm muted, but.
I can hear you. Just
We can hear you, Diane.
Oh, good. Thank you. Mike, I just have a question. It mentions that 184 small facilities are not eligible to have election judges administer voting. And what facilities would those be, and why the exclusion? And what do they do in the absence of election judges administering the voting?
Boris, can you speak to the criteria for the nursing home program? And
It's the program requires that you have 50 beds or more to be eligible to take part in the program. For the
I'm sorry,
smaller,
how many?
50.
Okay, thank you.
For the smaller facilities, we go out and send the information packet on voter registration options, possibilities, as well as voting options, possibilities for all the residents of the smaller homes.
Okay, so that means, I'm not familiar with what the program is.
Okay.
So in the larger ones, we actually, maybe could you explain the process of sending out the election judges and administer actual voting procedures with a machine?
It's just like at the polling place. If the person, for example, would require assistance, you would have 2 election judges of different political parties to assist you to complete your ballot. The same goes at the nursing home facilities. There are election judges, different political parties in bipartisan teams assist voters to complete their either voter registration or their ballots for voting.
Yeah, we have done that pre-election. Yeah.
The next item on the report had noted that at this time, we have processed more than 25,000 applications for a vote by mail ballot for the primary election. About 2/3 of those requests are for a permanent vote by mail, and about 15% of them are for web delivery ballots. Applications have only been mailed to voters who are affiliated with the Democratic and the Republican parties. They have not at this time been mailed to unaffiliated voters. That's because while in Montgomery County, unaffiliated voters all get a ballot, that is not necessarily the case statewide, and the state is doing this mailing. And so the state is sending them to all unaffiliated voters based on the ballot that the unaffiliated voters will be eligible to vote after the close of candidate filing. I have a couple of personnel things to say, and I am gonna embarrass Chris and make her come in front of the camera because I'm really devastated that Chris Zizit is retiring. Chris, I have tried my hardest to talk her out of it, and she put her foot down and said no, that she really is going to be leaving the staff of the Board of Elections. And so Chris, I'm gonna make you just wave or something and just say hi to everybody. She's not leaving us quite yet.
Well, it'll be a couple months before, but I have appreciated my time here. Elections are very important to me, and I wish you all the best. Thank
We
you.
appreciate you, Chris.
Chris, we wish you the best as well. And thank you for all of your help.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
We're pretty good at recruiting around here, and I'm kind of thinking that we're going to try to get Chris to do something else in her we have a lot of retirees who do things like run early voting sites for us. And so, you know, we're going to do our best to keep Chris as part of the team.
Allison, early voting might be a possibility, but I think Chris made it pretty clear that she's not available on election day.
So I understand. Yes.
Yes.
But the county has agreed to allow us to go ahead and advertise for that position and fill it while Chris is still here working with us. And so I'm grateful to the county for doing that. And I'm grateful to Chris for agreeing to stick around for a while and help us make sure that we have a seamless transition in that role, because it's obviously a really critical role. For those of you who are observing, Chris oversees election operations, really the whole operation surrounding in-person voting and early voting election day. And, you know, it's a really key role. So we're really grateful to Chris for everything that she is continuing to do for our office prior to her retirement. And I want to skip ahead and not spend too much time on the director's report because we have a ton of polling places and boundaries that we need to review in this meeting. But we can come back to any of the rest of what I covered in the election director's report and the written report at the desire of the board. Two things that I will just mention before I close out. Number one, we had a little bit of a discussion about some pending legislation earlier. There was one piece of legislation that did go through both the House of Delegates and the Senate and is headed to the governor, which really just codifies the 50-50 split that we have had as our general practice in the way that expenses are split for voting system related costs between counties and the state. The way that bill passed in its final form, it really does not make a substantive change to what the split has been between counties and the state. But what it did have some new uncodified language in it that it effectively sets a floor on the number of polling places for election day at the number that we had in the 2018 election. And I want to note for all of you that that's consistent with what the staff's recommendations are in Montgomery County at this point. There are some other counties that have been talking about significant consolidations in their polling places, but we have not been. And so that really does not have an effect for Montgomery County at this time. None of what we have recommended at the staff or that the board has talked about is in any way consolidating polling places.
Could I ask about that, Allison?
Yeah.
while it's true that we have no plans at the moment to have fewer polling places than we did in 2018, my understanding is that we may have a challenge in finding election judges to work in July. We don't know what the COVID situation will be. We don't know what the school construction situation will be. So it sounds like we may have a few instances where consolidation of polling places might have otherwise been something to consider. And if this law gets signed, that we would not, I haven't read it in detail, but I don't know if it is an absolute, thou shalt not, or, but it sounds like there may be a lot of difficulty if it turns out that we don't have the necessary either polling places or staffing for however many we had in 2018.
You are correct. That imposes a constraint on the flexibility that the board will face in that situation. And it is a constraint that the elections personnel in a number of the other counties have been pretty outspoken about, but the legislature was pretty firm in their, that's the language that passed.
Okay, so whether it affects us is still up in the air, essentially. I mean, you're saying that none of our current plans are affected, but we still don't know what our future plans will be.
Yes, exactly.
Fair enough. Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm finished. Yes, we can
Okay,
move on to
before we
redistricting.
start our next subject, Ms. Braun, your hand is up, so you can talk.
Yes, good afternoon, board. My major input here today is I participated for my first time in one of your meetings last week, and I was pretty much offended by the response I got. And I'll feed it back to you because we can't look at ourselves and be good judges. I asked a question of how this was to proceed. And one of the, I think it's the lawyer, mentioned the fact, do I have to teach elections 101? Well, that immediately turned me off. And ever since then, I've been more critical at looking at this board. And I say it's an insider's board. You don't realize it, but you guys are talking to yourselves and you're not inviting outside people to watch it and really feel like you're participating. And that's a matter really that you're not following really meeting rules very well. One of the things is I wanted to participate. I have the agenda right sitting in front of me right now, and I'm looking at it. And I know when I was supposed to speak. I was getting ready to raise my hand and you blew past that period and went on and got into the next subject, and I didn't have an opportunity. So you either say, set down your rules and say, okay, raise your hand when the meeting starts and then we'll get to you as public comment, or say, wait a minute and let people participate. But you really, for organization that's looking for volunteers, have managed to turn off at least one person and really leave a sour note. And I went all through that stuff of becoming a judge, not to get turned down by, for a minimum amount of input. That's all I've got.
Well,
Ms.
Brown, can you?
You directed this comment to me. I did not say that I have some problem teaching election 101. That never came out of my mouth.
Ms. Brown, are you referring to, was it the March 7th meeting?
It was a comment that was made immediately before, as he was starting to answer the question, is this going to be election 101? I don't need these petty comments like that if I'm going to be a volunteer in something I want to put my heart and soul into. Be nice. Learn how to play in the sandbox like you are really a person. That's a really wrong way to start out a conversation with somebody that's just coming on board. I don't know if you understood what I just said. You want me to elaborate?
I understood what you said.
Okay.
Are you finished, Ms. Brown? Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Naheed,
I'm muted. I was muted. Yes,
Well,
I
when-
am done. Thank you.
okay. Naheed, may I be recognized for
David,
a
please.
moment?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I don't recall that particular comment. And I would definitely agree with Ms. Brown that we should be as welcoming to the public as we can be. I do know that for those who want to participate in the public comment period, that there are instructions on how to do so on our website. I also know that the president just called on Ms. Brown outside of our normal order in the meeting, and the president did follow the agenda today. And I also know, to be fair, that her predecessor also frequently took public comment from people, not necessarily during the public comment period, even though our rules provide that it's up to the president to make the decision as to when to hear from the public, other than in our public comment period. I would also add that I was pleasantly surprised that, we had a number of special meetings, not our monthly meetings, and there was a public comment period in each of those meetings. So it wasn't just limited to our monthly meetings. So we've had a lot of public comment periods recently. That doesn't change the fact that we should be as understanding as we can be, which is why when people have been asking questions in the chat, such as who is that speaking, etc., I have been trying to answer it to the extent that I can and still follow the meeting. I also would say that while it would not surprise me at all if Kevin ever thought that he was doing Elections 101 when talking to me, because he had to repeat himself more than once. He has never expressed that. I have never heard that from Kevin, our attorney, ever, in terms of talking down to board members or the public. So if we are doing that, we definitely should fix it. I don't recall hearing it that way. We have been hearing from the public. I hope we will continue to hear from the public. I am very grateful that the public is interested enough in our activities that they are here to observe what we're doing. And we have a lot to do today, so I should probably wind up my remarks. But I did want to say that I do think that we have been today, we have been hearing from the public as we should be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. I don't recall Kevin even said such a things. I know him for 15 years in the board. Thank you. All right.
Her hand is raised again.
Ms. Brown, your hand is up or your?
Yes, thank you very much. And I definitely heard what I heard, and it was an offhanded comment, and it should have never been aired. But number two, one of the problems with any board is becoming a self-licking ice cream cone. And that is the biggest problem with people that have this insular perspective on the way they do business. And we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and let's have the report. And it just becomes an insider game, and you guys don't realize it. And that's why you don't have, and to say that, oh, we had these public meetings here, and we've had these public meetings there. Maybe nobody knew about your public meeting here. Maybe nobody knew about your public meeting there. So just be aware of what I'm saying. Take it and run with it. I'm not asking you for any special favors, but one of the things I do want to mention is I don't think people that go to all the trouble to become election judges should be considered just the public, okay? I mean, when somebody goes to this much trouble to be a volunteer and take those tests and spend the time and then do the actual work, we're not just the public. So I'd be very cautious on the way you start to address people. It's very rude.
Are you finished? Ms. Brown? Thank you very much. Thank you. Next. Board Attorney's report.
Thank you, Board President. The trial regarding the congressional redistricting lines was held last week. I spoke to Mr. Trento, email with Mr. Trento this morning, who's the Assistant Attorney General of the Board of Elections. The trial was held before Judge Battaglia, who's a retired judge from the Court of Appeals. Mr. Trento thinks that a decision by Judge Battaglia will be rendered by this Friday. Under the Maryland Rules of Civil Procedure, this particular issue gets an automatic appeal directly to the Court of Appeals. And it is projected that oral argument before the Court of Appeals will be held the first week of April. And I think that's consistent with the other challenges to redistricting that will probably be heard the first or second week of April, with the decision to be rendered shortly thereafter. So that's kind of where we are in terms of the redistricting litigation. I need to speak to Chris about the MOUs that we basically had finalized, but obviously all the dates for early voting have changed, and the Dropbox, while the locations have remained the same, the dates have changed. So we're going to have to go ahead and work with Montgomery County and our private partners that we use for early voting to lock in those new dates, change the agreements to get that in place. And I have suggested that Chris reach out to Montgomery County Public Schools and provide the board with some information about as the board may recall, there were a few, I don't know the exact number. There were certain schools that were going under construction, and they said, we think we can hold off a couple weeks because that's, the election so close to when school ends. And I think we need to now circle back and see whether their construction schedule is going to be a problem for certain locations that the board will have to consider moving forward. We hope to have more information for the board's consideration at the next board meeting. So that's all I have to report. Does anyone have any questions?
Alex, yes.
Thank you, Madam President. Kevin, if I could ask, do you have a sense of what the range of remedies that Judge Battaglia could give in this lawsuit when she renders judgment?
I really don't. She's going to prepare. I'm not sure what the remedies could be. I'm sure she could go ahead and find that certain lines were not properly drawn, but at the end of the day, it's going to end up at the Court of Appeals anyway, and they'll make the decision as to whether the current lines are properly drawn or need to be sent back for additional work.
But you think that she may have discretion to do something less than either accept or reject the entirety of the maps?
I'm not certain, Alex. I don't want to say that, that I'm fully versed on what the remedies would be available to the court under those circumstances.
Understood. No, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I was just curious, but thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. Any other question for Kevin? Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
New business. Ballot drop. Going to answer that.
I'll just to summarize, because this was on the agenda because we thought at the time to finalize the agenda that we may have a real issue for the board to discuss. But in our subsequent conversations with Marriott, the challenge has been averted. We now have an arrangement where they are going to retain the video from the Dropbox, and then we'll just go through the legal process should we need to. So there is no longer a need for the board to act on this item. And I did get a comment that we should make sure that anyone who has not identified themselves should do so, since we have people speaking from off screen and it's not necessarily what lights up. Allison McLaughlin, acting election director. And I believe that Chris Zizet, our operations manager, has a comment to make on this topic as well.
Thank you, Allison. Come on.
Thank you, Ms. McLaughlin. What I want to say that I haven't had an opportunity to share with Ms. McLaughlin to this point was Saturday afternoon, I received notice that 3 of the locations where we are installing or planning on installing approved ballot drop boxes now already have a box there. A different organization has placed boxes at 3 of our locations. I see this as a potential for a conflict, and I think it's something that we will have to open discussion about with Bauer, Dasik, and then a 3rd location, which escapes me right now.
I'm sorry, Chris, could you please repeat that? So there's 3 locations and what are the conflicts?
The drop boxes.
The drop boxes will be related to the COVID testing. And they are at 3 of our locations in basically probably close proximity to our box. Now the boxes look entirely different, but I think it could be a subject of confusion on where they're to place their ballot. And these boxes, for all intensive purposes, appear to be a permanent situation, at least for a while.
So there are boxes to drop off COVID testing as well as boxes to drop off ballots.
Correct.
And do we know how similarly they look or colors or?
Box, yes. Alice, soon as a picture, it's a smaller box than ours, and it's gray. Ours is very distinctive. It is taller than I am and quite large with all of the Montgomery County and state images on it. But there's always that potential for confusion.
Would the placement of these boxes, these the COVID boxes, interfere with the spots that we have our vis-a-vis the surveillance equipment?
One box that I've seen will not interfere. We will still have the visual that we need from the cameras, that light line. But I have seen the position of the other 2.
Okay. Any other question? That's it. Oh, there's. Ladies.
Introduce yourselves before you speak. Oh. Well, just to make clear, because I'm also trying to hear the comments in addition to following the meeting, but I do see the comment. So Janet Ross, our acting deputy director, and Chris Zizit, our operations manager, are the 2 people who are going to be continuing the process of reviewing the staff proposed precinct boundaries and in many cases proposed polling places as well. Okay.
Okay.
Let's confirm audio first, make sure they can hear us and we can hear them.
That's what I was ready to do.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
I can't hear.
And that's why.
No, you know my speakers are off because I didn't want to interfere with Naheed. Okay, can somebody respond again?
Yes.
Okay,
We hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. So Chris and I are going to go through the remaining precincts. And do you want me to start? Okay, so first precinct is 1201, which is Damascus High School. Yeah, elementary school. So this is the bottom. This is what the precinct currently looks like.
Are you thinking you're sharing your screen?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't share my screen.
No, we see a still picture of you, Janet.
Yeah.
1201.
It's a very nice picture.
Thank you. Share screen. Okay, now it's sharing.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the old, the red line is the old 1201. And you can see the legislative boundary went through the precinct.
Is that the old legislative?
This is the new legislative boundary. So this is what the resulting 1201 looks like. Let me make it a little smaller so you can see the whole thing.
Yeah.
And they will remain at Damascus Elementary School. Okay, the next one is,
Janet, to be Janet, we assume that there's no proper place in the precinct for polling place?
no, it wasn't.
Okay.
Okay, 1202, we're going to the original first. So 1202 was this boundary, all of this. And now you can see that the congressional went through this one. So we're cutting off this little piece of 1202 up here, and this is what is remaining, which is, and we picked up a part of 1201 down here. Over here, we picked up part of 1201, this little section over here.
That's about 200 voters.
So this is the new 1202B, and they're staying at John T. Baker Middle School.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one is 1203. I'll go to the bottom first, Chris.
Okay. 1203, we had voters moving from 1201 into Baker. And 1203 is affected basically by the congressional line. The green line that runs through 1203 has moved people to 1201. And now this is the new configuration of 1203B. And 1203B will have about 2,600 people going to John T. Baker Middle School.
Chris, is that Woodfield Elementary
Woodfield.
School?
Excuse me, yes.
Okay, thank you.
We had to create a new 1206 in this corner, and it's basically because of a congressional and legislative boundary. And that corner is created an entity unto itself. There's no other jurisdiction that has a like jurisdictional makeup nearby. So it will be new 1206. We will be sending those people to Damascus High School as a consolidated configuration.
How many voters in 1206, the new 1206?
There's going to be about 457 voters moved.
And how many are existing at Damascus from other locations?
Wait a minute, we gotta look that one up.
We have a table that we're referring to. Take us a minute.
Thank you.
3,276.
Okay.
That's a high school.
That's a high school,
that's
yeah.
Right. Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and that's all the 12s. That was all of District 12, so we're going on to 13.
We're going to go to 1320A, and it is a congressional line that has divided that precinct in half, and there will be voters. And this school now, the name has changed. You might have seen it referenced on some of our paperwork as Colonel E. Brooke Lee, but it has been renamed Odessa Shannon. And the people in 13A will continue to go to that middle school, which used to be Lee, now it's Shannon. And those voters are familiar with that polling place. It's about 1,900 voters, 1877. that we're moving, or we're not moving. They're remaining at 1320A.
Okay, we're going to the next one. This is a combination. We're covering like 4 precincts in this one map. So this is the original configuration. This is 1340. and it
Can you
goes-
go down a little further?
Yes.
Because if you're
Yeah,
showing
let
us
me make it a
3,
little smaller. Let me
yeah,
make
if you're
it.
showing us 3 precincts, it would be helpful.
So this is 1340 and this is Connecticut Avenue. And so part of 1340 crosses Connecticut Avenue. Part of 1327 crosses Connecticut Avenue the other way. Okay, and this is from the District 18 memo that we received, and they requested that we make the people that were crossing 1340 to go vote on that side to stay on that side, and 1327 to stay on this side. And we thought it was a very valid request. Okay, and then at the bottom of 1340, this is the area where the new county line goes through, but it has a different Board of Education makeup. And until the legislation passes, we will have to make it a new precinct, but if the legislation passes, it will go into 1334, I'm sorry, and be part of 1334. So that's why it's the same color.
Not part of 1340.
No, 1334. I corrected myself.
Hmm.
So the legislation that is needed is for the school board district?
Yes,
Yeah.
they have different school boards.
Okay,
But if it doesn't pass, we got to make this little area here its own precinct. Mhm.
That's Kengar.
Yeah,
Yes, that's the Kengar community.
so it has to be its own precinct because its jurisdictional makeup is unique.
only the Board of Education doesn't match any of those. Yeah.
And if the legislation doesn't pass, it will remain its own identity, its own
Got it.
precinct.
Got
There's
it.
249 voters in that little area.
Anyone know what the status of the legislation is?
I can check quick. I think it has passed the House and is now in the Senate.
Okay.
But
Excellent.
Delegate Carr has that bill.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going on to 1328. And this is one we changed after looking at some of our lines, and we thought this was a better mix. So what we're going to do is move, let me go to the bottom first. This is 1330, which goes to Holiday Park. They normally vote at Holiday Park. And this is part of 1344 here. And that's 1328 above. So because of the congressional line, we had to move part of 1344 into 1330. But then when we were looking at it, we were like, why can't all of 1330 be absorbed into 1328 and vote at Wheaton High School? They have the same jurisdictional makeup, and Holiday Park is actually outside of this precinct. It's a little over here somewhere.
It will basically keep that Wheaton community in that area together, and no one will have to be crossing over a significant artery to get to Wheaton High School.
That's good.
Yeah, we're gonna eliminate 1330. We're gonna move out of Holiday Park altogether.
How many
5,000.
how many voters are in this consolidated one?
5,187, but it is a high school.
Okay.
It's a
And
huge high school.
Yes,
That's a good facility.
Yeah.
yes, it is.
Yes, Wheaton High School.
Yes, and it was rebuilt, now it's probably been about 3 or 4 years since.
Yeah, but not long ago.
Correct. And I've been in the cafeteria. It will easily accommodate a good number.
Yeah, I've always found the voting there very, very user friendly.
Okay.
And the otherwise, they would be crossing both Connecticut Avenue and Veersmill Road in order to get to Holiday Park.
Correct.
Oh, and there's abundant parking.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So we're moving on to 1329. Go to
The
the bottom.
1329 is also some of 1330. This Janet's using her cursor to show you that portion was impacted by the congressional line. So they will be moving in the vote. When I say they, the voters will be moved in to 1329 and they will vote at Highland Elementary School. It will mean that the population is about 3,500 voting at that school. And then that retires all of precinct 1330. It will be non-existent.
Okay, and this one, 1344, we're just showing what's remaining because this top portion had to be moved into 1330, then we merged it with 1328. So this is what's remaining, is this area. And it's 2000.
Arcola.
Yeah. And they voted at Arcola Elementary School.
1344 is new, I'm sorry.
No, it's in existing. It's just what's remaining. We had to take portion of it off.
So it's existing with fewer voters than it had in the past at the same location.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
45. Okay, this was a minor change. It was affected by the congressional. There was a small precinct 1370 that was part of the community at one time and then was isolated because of the jurisdictional makeup. But now with the lines redrawn in 2020, we are able to move those voters back into actually what was their original home precinct of Brookhaven Elementary School, 1345. And that affected, well, we don't have the number here, but it was a small number of people.
Yeah, 212. 212.
Oh, excuse me, 212. It affected 212 voters. But as I say, they're actually moving back into a location that they're familiar with. Shall we go on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me pick this one here.
1361 is it affects people that attended Blake High School, but 61 is very close to the boundary of Leisure World, a portion of it. And we're trying to include it in 1361. It's affected by a congressional. There's a small box, well, that is actually affected by legislative and congressional in that area. And that's about 90 people. And then the other section is affected, but I think there's no people in that particular area. And what is remaining is the shaded area that Janet just showed you. It says 1361, and that also is over 5,000 voters at Blake High School, but we have been hosting that many people in the past at Blake.
So you've removed some voters. I'm sorry, can you go back to the old one? So, yep, right. Basically in that bottom right corner is where you've removed some voters.
Right here. And I don't think there's any voters here. It's right, it's over here.
Is it?
It's this
the
little
90
corner,
is there.
right? It's nine. It's
Okay.
9 voters
Nine.
over here. And we don't have a map of that because it's a situation we have sent to the state for right now, for them to look at first. The next meeting we have, the problems we will include. It's like 2 or 3 precincts. One has 2, one has 9, and one has 24 or something like that. And they asked us to send them to them. So we kind of held them off for right now. The 24 we actually included last time. We did it as a non-contiguous. But these 2, we have to wait for the state to respond to us because it's a problem.
Basically, there's just a whole conversation that we need to have about these micro precincts. And so we'll lump those together and have that conversation with the board at the April meeting.
Okay, so, and the last one is 1372. You see where 1320 was divided by the congressional line. So we had to create a new precinct, and that's 1372. So it was originally part of 1320, and they're going to stay at Odessa Shannon Middle School.
So Shannon, I have 13 seconds and another one?
Yeah, they all used to vote there anyway, but the congressional line broke them up. It's only 478 people.
And it'll be a consolidated situation. There'll be two ballot styles there on election.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and that's it. That's the last one. We went through those really quick. That's it. We're done.
Wow.
So from this point, and I don't know if, Kevin, if you want to speak to the process too, Kevin and I had discussed this morning how we want to propose that the board proceed. We certainly have, now we have completed the review of all of the precincts and all of the staff recommendations. And what we want to do is get ourselves to the point where at the April meeting, we're going to be in a position for the board to take a vote. And so what we would like to ask the board to do is to go ahead and as you review the materials of what we've previously provided, provide your questions to the staff. We are certainly ready and able to have board members come in, and some of you have come in and looked closely at these maps yourselves and have answer all of the questions that we can answer for you. I really leave it to the board to decide on your process, but we will need to get to a final vote by that April meeting and make sure that we have your questions answered. Kevin, did you want to elaborate on process, or we have to unmute Kevin?
Thank you. So that is the process. One of the questions that was raised was how will the public be informed? I think if the board has specific questions, we can certainly list that up in a chat series, as well as share any public comment that the public gives regarding any of the presentations and any suggested locations that perhaps have not been looked at yet.
There were some follow-up items that we had discussed over the course of these various meetings. Are there still kind of to-dos on that before you have a list of kind of a proposed list for us?
Yes.
Absolutely are, yeah.
Yes, that was my next question. How do we want to handle the ones that you all requested? We look at different locations, or we do a new configuration, like a couple precincts you asked us to combine and then split. So we went through all of those Saturday. Louise is in the process of redoing the maps. So we wanted to know how you all want to handle. Did you want to do another meeting of just reviewing those? And then we'll post them on the website and say, these are the updated maps to the ones that we decided to change.
How do you want to approach this question which Janet had?
Can't hear you, Nahid.
Can you hear me?
I mean, basically, we can either do this where we're putting exposure drafts on the website for input, and leaving it at that, or we can have another interim meeting.
You got to talk over here.
Just speak up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or we can mute me and turn you back on. I'm done.
Can
Yeah, let me mute myself.
Okay.
Let me mute myself.
Nahid appears to be muted. Now, there she goes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. How do you want to approach this, the Janet questions? Should we have another Zoom meeting or a meeting to discuss what they have done?
Nahid?
Yes,
Yeah, at this meeting, could Janet or Chris go over the polling places we asked about before? During the last few meetings, we've asked about, what about moving this polling place here or there? And I also had questions about the new precinct that Delegate Carr wanted up in the Twin Brook area. off of Rockville Pike, and anybody looked into possible polling places there, so you can merge the Parkside voters with Garrett Park Elementary, for example. There were a number like that we talked about, and maybe we could talk about those now, and then we decide what we do about the whole batch.
But would it make sense? I'm sorry.
Well, those are precisely the changes that that we need to discuss how the board wants to handle. The staff has not had an opportunity. They were preparing the materials for this meeting, and so the staff has not yet had an opportunity to go back and prepare for you everything that the board might have questions on. And quite frankly, I expect you to have more questions. And so that's what we either put these up in exposure documents and have the board raise its questions so that we can be ready to finalize that conversation in the April meeting, or if you want to talk them through as a board prior to the April meeting, and then again at the April meeting, we can schedule another interim meeting.
Alex is talking.
Madam President, I wasn't at the last special meeting, so if there is a need to discuss it, maybe a special meeting would be in order. But if we were able to review these things and come to a consensus on what we might decide at the April meeting, then maybe it's not necessary. I don't know.
David.
I don't think we came to consensus because I think there were still some questions that remained. And so I guess my question for staff would be, is it possible, do you already have an existing list that we could talk about now of what remains to be decided? Or do we need to meet, on a different occasion in order to put together such a list? Because there were a number of precincts where we raised questions and we didn't really resolve them at the time.
So the staff can meet and put together that list and put it out as an exposure draft on the website, and then we can field individual questions about it, with the expectation that the board will come back together at the April meeting to talk about it. Or as we said, we can schedule another interim meeting. But the staff has not yet prepared that list for review and comment.
Okay, because I think there were a few situations where we said we wanted you to look into the possibility of private sites that are in precinct compared to public buildings that were outside of precinct. There were one or two where we raised questions, and I don't know what your all's final view is as to whether you're recommending them or not. So I think it would be useful to see if you have a list of what you're proposing. I wouldn't be opposed to having another meeting if we have sufficient notice for it. But mostly I'd want to make sure that whatever we put on our website is easy for people to spot as to what our proposals are. For example, it may not be sufficient to just say the name of the polling place. If we are closing one polling place and moving people to another, I think the label on our website has to say that, so that people can know what it is that we're proposing.
I'll defer to Janet on a timetable.
Janet.
We did go through the list. We went through all of the changes on Saturday, but we, made sure we were ready for today. And we gave Louise a stack of maps to redo based on your comments, your questions. Can we move to a new location? We also got to give Chris a little time to go look for a couple of locations.
Yeah.
So for the most part, the maps will probably be done by the end of this week, if not sooner. The ones that she had, they were minor changes.
Right, but if we don't have polling places scoped out yet,
right,
to know what,
won't put up.
Right, but what I'm saying is putting up a precinct proposal to change a precinct boundary without saying where the polling place is proposed to be is really not giving the public much to work on.
Right.
So I'm wondering whether it makes more sense after you figure out whether you have other places for us to look at or not. And I realize in each case you might say there's nothing there, but it seems like that would be the time to put something out for the public so that they can see exactly what we're proposing and where they would be voting.
So I'm going to make a recommendation here based on some just sidebar conversations with the staff. We will put together that package of information by next Monday, the 28th. Give us the week and the weekend in order to put the written materials together. And then perhaps the board could decide at that point whether there's an additional meeting that's needed and what the scope of that meeting might be.
I'm open to question.
That sounds fine to me.
Fine with you. Alan?
I would also point out for Chris, I don't know if Chris can see the chat, but a suggestion has been made for a possible polling place.
They're responding to that chat.
Okay, great,
Elise,
great, thank you.
Elise, you want to talk?
No, I was just saying that the proposed schedule is fine with me. And if it's also possible to include in these, more final looking versions of the maps, not only the precinct, but also the number of voters in the new versions. In particular, I don't think we asked about the newly configured 12-1. How many voters are in that, or unless I missed it.
12-1.
It's, Chris will answer it.
There's two portions of 1201. We were going to divide them into different, okay, you want the number that
Yes.
we'll be having at
Yes.
1201
1201.
Damascus Elementary is 2432.
Okay.
408. Okay.
And all of these numbers, they are on the website. It's a matrix of all the changes on the website above the map.
Okay.
And I have been updating it. If you make any changes, I do update.
Thank you.
The document that we'll put together for next Monday, the 28th, we'll pull that all together into a single set of links.
Okay.
Thank you, Alice. Ami?
I have no comments. I think it's fine.
Okay, thank you. Diane?
Nothing to add.
All right then. So the bottom line, Alex, both. They will have a meeting, Zoom meeting.
I guess you're suggesting we might have a special meeting
Yeah.
within the next week, maybe, or?
Okay, then.
I think it's after the next week, because we need to give them the time to get the materials
Right.
together, and then we have to give the public
And-
time to review them.
Cannot.
Action items.
Okay, when do you think we can do it? In some first 2 weeks in April or something? April. All right, guys. They're checking to see when we can have the data available.
2 Mondays from today.
Will give us enough time.
April 12th.
April 4th would be ideal for
April
me.
4th, is everybody?
April 12th,
No, April
Sorry.
4th. 4th.
April 4th.
Yes.
Okay.
I need to check my schedule. Please give me a minute.
That would be 2 weeks from today.
So basically, we would be posting our stuff on the previous Monday and then meeting on the following Monday.
Is
Is
that
that-
right?
Yeah, we're gonna
Yes.
try to
David.
post everything, but if we don't have a polling place yet, we're not gonna put it up. We'll put up everything we know we have a definite polling place for.
Fine.
Okay, I can do April 4th. If that's what we're talking about.
After 11 o'clock?
Oh, you want it at a different time than normal?
Yeah, I thought it was like a 2:30, like we've been doing.
2:30, okay.
Is that, I mean, does that work for others?
That's fine.
Yeah,
Okay. I'm checking with Janet and the staff, so it's good. All right then. So 2:30 on April 4th. All right,
Action items.
yes, I will do that.
Before you get to action items, we were gonna talk, when can we talk about the meeting schedule?
Oh, we can go after we finish our meeting, I mean, toward the future meeting. Is that good? Under the future meeting? That's the
Okay.
one we can talk about the meetings.
Okay,
All right. Action items.
The action items that I have for this meeting, I had promised to provide a list of the dates of municipal elections. I had promised to provide a list of the facilities that are participating in the nursing home program. We had promised to provide an exposure draft of the polling place and precinct boundary information by Monday, March 28th. And then we will schedule and have an interim meeting on Monday, April 4th, prior to your regularly scheduled April meeting, when we will plan to have the board hold its final vote on the precincts and their boundaries.
Okay,
So your draft would be just those ones at the last special meeting that the board members talked about making changes to?
It's actually from both meetings.
Okay.
The 7th and the 14th. We just kept
It's
notes from
It's
both.
going to be cumulative from all of the discussions of these, right?
yeah,
Did I cover all of the action items, or Lisa, do you have any on your
No, I
list?
don't have any others.
Or do any board members have other action items that I neglected to include? Okay.
yes, no. Third, the minutes, which we don't have it, we will approve it in our next meeting. Okay,
As a staff member, when we'll get the next, get the minutes of the February meeting and
they're
other March
work,
meetings?
they're working, Alan,
Good,
because of
thanks.
this all these restriction. All right then.
Yeah.
Now future meetings. David, future
I-
meeting.
Yeah, well, I was going to suggest that rather than meeting on the 20th of June, which is a federal, state, and local holiday for the Juneteenth holiday, that we meet on either the following Friday or Monday, which would be June 24 or June 27.
June 27th.
I said either June 24 or June 27 is what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
I don't know how that works for others. I just wanted to throw those out as possibility.
June 27th is the better day for me.
Is,
Yeah.
is
June 27th,
is June 27 good for everybody?
yes.
Yeah.
David? It's good for me.
Yes, I think I just proposed it. So yes.
Good. So you
Yes.
change your mind. All right.
No, I haven't changed my mind in the 2 minutes since I said it. No.
Okay, then June 27. I'll meet.
Okay,
28.
Okay,
we move to
and
June
then then we have the July meeting is currently well, first of all, the one that's listed as June 28th should be on July 19th. I assume we're going to have that meeting on election day, as we normally do,
We usually do that. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
but not on the 28th, since that's no longer election day.
No,
And
right.
then and then I'm guessing that we're not going to want to meet on the 18th if the election day is the 19th. So the question becomes what we do with the July meeting, which also is going to be around the time that we're going to have potentially a fair amount of canvassing to do.
Right.
So I don't know whether it makes sense to move that one earlier and have that one as kind of election prep, but you know, usually we do have a meeting, a regular meeting in addition to our canvas meeting.
why don't we move that to the 11th?
11th of July.
Yes. That's a week ahead of the election.
Right. That would work.
4 days into the early voting period, in the middle of it.
Oh, that's true. It's in the middle of early voting. Of course, we have met in the middle of early voting before. It is
No.
an opportunity for us to, you know, give feedback and such. But I'm pretty sure we don't want to do it on the 4th.
No.
Okay. I'm fine
Um,
with the 11th.
or if there's another time. I mean, I'm not,
11.
11, July 11, what time? 2:30? July 11, 2:30. Is that good?
Sounds fine, yes.
It's fine.
and then I assume that someone can revise the website
Yes, yes,
to today or
Yes.
very soon.
yes, they're gonna do it.
Yes, thank you.
President, we'll have also a certification in August, so that date will also, once we know more when the certification date is, we'll move that board meeting date to the certification date.
What Lisa said, certification, we changed the meeting to the day which we have to certify. And
Okay,
Lisa will, okay?
But we don't know what date the state has imposed yet.
Yes, we don't know that. All right, any
Can
other
I-
changes?
Yeah, can I ask a question before we settle on our April meeting?
Sure,
There is the possibility that the courts could rule in April in a way that will change almost everything we've just discussed,
Sure.
or at least it could. And I'm just wondering whether our April 4 meeting, which I believe is right around the time that the special master will be submitting his recommendations to the court. I'm just wondering if there's some benefit to us to perhaps meeting after that happens, as opposed to before that happens.
So right now, we're looking at a meeting on April the 4th and a meeting on April 18th. I will defer to Kevin in terms of how those dates line up with what we might be looking at from the courts.
Evan?
I see David's point. I'm just looking at, is there a particular date you're proposing?
I was thinking that the 11th, we might have more information than we'll have on the 4th. We obviously don't know when we'll have any final decisions. But if we're going to spend a day talking about all of this and the courts look like they're about to, overturn all the lines, I'm not, that might affect, our doing that.
can we
Right.
keep the 4th and be flexible and move it if we have to?
Well, it's helpful to the public for them to know more than a couple days in advance when we're meeting.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point, and I guess I'd be tempted to go to the 11th then.
Yeah, is everyone available on the 11th?
Yes,
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm not free yet.
Alex will not be there.
I may not be, but would that be in substitute of the 4th or the 18th? Okay.
It's a
For the
substitute for the 4th is what I was
Right.
thinking.
that's what I'm proposing.
And Alex, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mess up your schedule, but I'm just trying to think about what, when we might have more information from the courts.
Or 11.
Realizing that we may not have a final decision by then.
2:30.
I think Diane says she may not be able to attend either.
ooh,
Yeah, but it's a maybe.
I know that. That's why I'm.
Yeah, I don't.
So
To
the good thing
December.
is redistricting, this information for redistricting, so all the
Right.
questions will be submitted in advance and
Right.
everything can be addressed at the board meeting on your behalf, if it's that you cannot attend.
Okay.
Wait, can you, can we explain that, please? So are we saying that on the 11th, it's designed for conversation, but that the action is designed for the 18th? Is that what we're saying?
Yes, that's the staff request. We
Okay,
don't, we want to have all the decisions be made at once so that we can mail all the polling place notification cards at once.
418.
right. Oh, no, understand that. I just,
Right.
I didn't mean to propose a date where two colleagues can't make it. That was, but I do think that I had read in numerous sources that the special master's report would be like either on the 4th or 5th or like right at that time. So,
Well, how about moving it to the 8th?
does that help for our other colleagues? It works for me.
Diane?
Is 8th, they're talking about the 8th to the 12th, is that for staff?
I'm sorry, say that again, Allison?
I'm just checking with staff to
Oh,
see.
okay, good.
Just hold on, yes, they're checking. Too many move.
Looking at the 8th or the 12th.
April 8th is a Friday.
Either one works.
Either one is good for Janet. It's
Whatever
good
the
for
board
you.
wants to do.
April 8th.
Alex, is there a preference or are they all equally bad?
or 8th?
The 8th could work. Yeah, I could make that work.
Okay, then we make it on the 8th.
Okay.
Diane,
Diane?
Sure.
it's good. All right, then. It's good for everyone. I hope.
All right, so it's now the 8th instead of either the 4th or the 11th, and then we still have a meeting on the 18th. That is correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Lisa,
Plus-
can you
plus-
email
plus-
everybody?
Plus a meeting on the, on June the 27th instead of June the 20th, plus a meeting on July the 19th instead of June the 28th. And I guess we haven't figured out what we're doing with the July 18th meeting, but we have a little while before we get there.
Yeah.
Lisa,
I have July 11.
The complete list
Oh.
of that I have
Oh,
written
I'm
down
sorry. I'm
is
sorry, you're
there
right.
will be
You're right.
board meetings on April 8th, April 18th, May 16th, June 27th, July 11th, July 19th, a date to be determined in August for certification,
Yes.
and then we do it all over again for the general election.
Right.
okay, it's all set? All right, then, right? No more?
All set for the moment until the courts change it again.
Yes, I don't think they're going to change it.
And of course, the board members' availability, will be, we'll get a, I guess we'll get a calendar of projected canvas dates out to the board members so that you all can negotiate a term amongst
Yes.
yourselves.
Lisa will send an email. Any other?
You might want to give the legislature time to do its thing before you get too far into that.
Yes, yes, David.
Mhm.
All right, then. Is any other question?
Yeah.
Alan has his
Alan?
hand up.
Yeah, I have a question for Allison about legislation. We know that Senator Kagan's bill on moving back the canvas time is going to be heard by the House committee on the 22nd. I guess that's tomorrow. Is Mayo testifying for that, or are they giving any written testimony for that or anything?
Yes, Maya will be testifying in support of that legislation.
Good.
Yeah.
I have also heard that the Montgomery County government is submitting a statement in support of that legislation as well.
Good. Because I thought that Delegate Moon was going to amend his bill to conform it to Senator Kagan's, but he hasn't done that. And so it looks like Senator Kagan's bill is the horse to ride.
Alan, is that the 50-50 split bill?
No, we're talking about moving the time for the canvass back to 8 days before early voting.
The 50-50 split bill is on its way to the governor.
And thanks to you all for your engagement. We were able to get the language cleaned up on that so that we don't have the confusion that we had about, what the definition of tabulation. So we now have a clear path on that. I do want to continue to note whenever this comes up, though, that we are not talking about proceeding with this process in the way that we did in 2020. What is under discussion right now, of course, current law says that we would not be opening any ballots until after Election Day. As proposed, as amended, what we would have is a period prior to early voting when we would have ballots allowed to be opened, and we would be able to open and have the board go ahead and canvass those ballots prior to early voting. But then we'll be calling a halt on that process for the time frame of early voting until after Election Day. And so that's different than what we have seen before. There is, we will not be canvassing during early voting or in through Election Day as we did in 2020.
Allison, is that because of what the law says or because of an administrative decision?
That is because that is what those involved in negotiating out legislative language were able to agree to.
So it's allow it before early voting, not allow it during early voting, allow it after early voting.
That was a compromise, yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right, then, any other question? The chair entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move, we adjourn the meeting.
I
Second,
second.
thank you. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Have a good evening, whatever.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank
Oh.
you.
The meeting.
Very good. They're going to restart the computer.